Right, today we go on to chapter 9 of SD 48. In other words, SD 48.9. Cūḻa Vedalla Sutta. This is Majjhima Nikaya, Sutta 44, M44. This is a very interesting sutta, which is actually a dialogue between erstwhile husband and wife. It is to show how both men and women are committed to the Dhamma, and also they are great saints. The husband, Visakha, is a stream winner, and the wife is the nun, dinnā. Dinnā decides to renounce the world, and the husband gave her the permission. And in due course, the husband also practices, becomes a non-returner. And Dinnā, very soon after ordination, within a few weeks, went off into retreat and becomes an arahant. So the husbands are curious why she left so early for her retreat. So when he goes and talks with her and asks her some very interesting questions, in a sense to find out if she's really awakened. This is a rare sutta where we have a chance to look into the mind of an arahant, if you like. And this sutta answers some very interesting questions. For example, the nature of the mind of an arahant. Do arahants have feelings? Questions like that. The many things we often take for granted, but the sutta will surprise us. The usages of certain words, for example, are special to reflect the awakened mind. So occasionally in the suttas, we have very special documents, records, which are rare and unique, describing the mind of the enlightened saints, the awakened mind, which is something you cannot get anywhere else. It's not something you can really read about or even listen. Of course you can listen to this kind of talks, but merely thinking about them is not enough. We reflect on them, meaning, what does this mean to me? How can I myself experience these things or some of this inner peace and wisdom? And look at the other parts of the suttas. And then we get all these little bits and pieces together, and the Dhamma becomes very clear. Over the last many decades in my own life, the suttas become clearer and clearer, so that translating suttas is so much fun. Of course, it appears difficult at first. There's always the feeling, wow, this sutta is very difficult to translate. And the worldliness in us often tell us, oh, take a break. I have people who are not coming here telling me, why don't you take a break? I said, take a break from what? Take a break from being happy? We don't do that, right? We take a break from the world, or we don't take a break from happiness. We want to be happy all the time if possible. Whether you take a break or not, happiness may go away by itself. So we got to work hard to make sure this happiness remains in us and affects and benefits others too. Some of you, even as you listen to this videotaping of suttas, you feel very happy. Some of you even wait for the sutta to appear online, and you spend your time watching it. Many of you cannot come to the minding center for various reasons. So you feel now the minding center has come to you, the Dhamma, the sutta has come to you. So you sit in the comfort of your own homes, in your privacy. You feel so happy, able to listen to the suttas. And you know that there is something in the sutta that is so wonderful, that is something so precious. We want to learn. We want to become wise and awaken ourselves in due course. Otherwise, there's no reason to study the suttas or to learn the suttas. At least to become better people, happier people. Because today you find there are all kinds of Buddhism. There's so much books, teachings and teachers and centers and Buddhism is available. Not like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when I was a young person, a young monk, it's so difficult to get books. There's this quantum leap, this big explosion in Buddhist knowledge. That means there's a lot of confusion and false teachings, watered down teachings that we have to be very careful about. Anyone can talk about Buddhism nowadays, anyone can talk about the suttas. So we have to listen carefully to all these teachings, check them against the suttas, compare them with the Dhamma and Vinaya, learn a bit of Pali if we can. Of course, in the case of the sutta discovery, the approach is very special because it's very broad-based. We don't only talk about suttas in the traditional sense, we also try to bring out the meaning of what the Buddha or the teacher in the sutta is trying to tell us. We use the commentaries where possible, the teachings of other learned and wise teachers. And the suttas also deal with current events. We use the sutta to understand what's going on with Buddhism around us, good and bad. Above all, we use the sutta to understand ourselves, to reflect on ourselves. So if you carefully look at the suttas, there's this wide range of approaches. Some are really wonderful, exciting, giving us new teachings about the Dhamma. Some are challenging, telling us about the difficulties we have to face, the dangers that are coming to us if we are not careful, and how to deal with all these difficult situations. And some of this reading are not easy, I must say. But the purpose is to help you to think, to examine for yourself. Don't just take one line, which seems to be strong or critical, and be upset with it. Examine the context, look at the other suttas, balance this view of what the social comments or the spiritual note is trying to tell you. Then you have something to benefit. As you watch all this video and study the suttas, I'll be already dead and gone many years or even decades, centuries even. And you'll find that these are really wonderful teachings. Nothing could be more true even in your own time. This was recorded in the year 2014 in January. And you find even in your time, many of the things you read in these translations are so true, even more true. If you carefully examine those documents, you'll find there are some answers, some ways you can solve those problems that you face. Above all, you have to understand the nature of your mind. So today we're looking at how these two people, they're talking to each other and they help us to understand the nature of the awakened mind, to help us work towards awakening our own minds ourselves. So we're on page 33, Cūḻa Vedalla Sutta, the discourse on the shorter catechism. Catechism is question-answer, learning by questioning and answering. In Buddhism, we call this Sangayana method, the council method. You have someone acts as the questioner and the other person acts as the answerer, respondent. It's like a radio talk kind of approach. M44. And that has quite a long introduction with lots of notes you can look up yourself. And to go straight into the sutta, beginning on page 44. Thus have I heard, at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in the squirrel's feeding ground in the bamboo grove near Rajagaha. Then the layman Visakha approached the nun Dhamma, saluted her and sat down at one side. Sitting thus at one side, the layman Visakha said this to the nun Dhamma. So here you have an opening where the Buddha is not present. It's a squirrel's feeding ground, and the Buddha used to live there also. So probably the Buddha is somewhere in his residence. And you have this layman, Visakha, who was a merchant before, but now is a stream winner, and he's talking to his ex-wife, Dhamma, who is an arahat, or arhati.
Then the what there you said the non-Dhamma is non-returner, layman visaka is arhat.
Oh, this is correct. Yeah? It should be the other way around. Okay, the visaka is the layman visaka is a non-returner, and the Madina is an arhat. So the layman visaka asks his first question. Section 2. Ayah is the feminine version of Bante. Ayah means like a noble sister. Like Bante means venerable sir, right? So normally we address a nun as Ayah. Ayah comes from the word Arya, similar to the word Arya, meaning noble. Self-identity, Sakkaya. It is said, what now, Ayah, is this self-identity as spoken of by the Blessed One? Right. What does the Buddha mean by the word self-identity, Sakkaya? So this is just the word Sakkaya, only, not Sakkaya Ditthi. Then the nun answers, Avuso Visakha. Now notice it's very interesting. The nun addresses a layman as Avuso. Right? So it's something like a friend, a general kind of respectful term, addressing someone equal or junior. Avuso Visakha. It is these 5 aggregates of clinging that the Blessed One speaks of as being self-identity. In other words, what really, if we really think of identifying, what can we identify with? Only our 5 aggregates. And these 5 aggregates are all changing all the time. That is to say, the aggregate of clinging, that is form. The aggregate of clinging, that is feeling. The aggregate of clinging, that is perception. The aggregate of clinging, that is formations. The aggregate of clinging, that is consciousness. Right. Here they are called aggregate of clinging because they form, or rather they comprise the unawakened person. In the case of an awakened person, an arahat, we only say simply khanda, aggregate, that's all. There's no prefix clinging. So form, feeling, perception, formations, consciousness, these are they are called self-identity, sakkaya. Then these Avuso Visakha are the 5 aggregates of clinging that the Blessed One speaks of as being self-identity. And then he says, Sadhu Ayah. The layman Visakha joyfully approved of the nun Dhammadina's word, and then asks another question. It's almost like each answer is a sutta. Only this first part, this line is mentioned. The rest is not mentioned again. The next question, Ayah, the arising of self-identity, Sakkaya Samudaya. It is said, what now, Ayah, is this arising of self-identity, as spoken of by the Blessed One? In other words, the arising of this self-identity, what makes it make it exist? Answer, Avuso Visakha, it is this craving that leads to renewed existence, or rebirth, accompanied by pleasure and lust, seeking pleasure here and there. That is to say, the craving for sense pleasures, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. This also is the arising of self-identity as spoken of by the Blessed One. So here we see self-identity actually is the same as dukkha. So there are different terms used to point to the same reality. So you can already have some idea now that when these great saints answer questions, they're very simple and so clear. Sometimes this simplicity can be beguiling. The intellectuals will say, oh, I know this. So they just think about it and they file it away in their mind and forget about it. It's a very dangerous way of learning because it is not learning at all. It's simply filing information. In other words, we have to remember, what does this mean? And over the years, as we listen to the Dhamma, our ideas of the teaching begin to change. All we're getting are ideas of the teaching, not the real teaching yet, although we're listening to the best teachers around. So we have to clear away the views until we get the actual teaching. That's the tricky part. So what is this arising of self-identity? It's a craving that keeps it going. This Avuso Visakha is the rising of self-identity as spoken of by the lesson 1. Then Visakha asks another question. The third question. The ending of self-identity, the ending of self-identity. Sakkaya Nirodha. So what is this? Okay, now I'm shortening the sentence. So Dhammadinā replies, Avuso Visakha, it is the utter fading away, an ending of that very craving, giving it up, letting it go, being free from it, being detached from it. Right? So this is the ending, letting go. Letting go. Letting go means what? Seeing it as it is impermanent. You cannot really grasp it. You can just kind of let it be, and just be yourself, so to speak. That's the meaning of letting go. Notice the impermanence of all these 5 processes: form, feeling, perception, formations, consciousness. When we look at it as they are, then we let go of the craving. We cannot make it more than what it is, or less than what it is. Just accept it as it is. Accept the body, our body as it is. Keep it healthy, but there's a limit to it. No matter how healthy we try to keep ourselves, we still fall sick. We have to take care of ourselves. We have to respect the body. You notice one of the first things you notice with the benefit of meditation is you notice your body more clearly. The senses become more sharp, more keen. So you learn to respect your body. Then we've gone to the next part, the ending of self-identity, that is letting go of the craving, and then followed by question 4, the path. So you see here the pattern itself, the 4 noble truths. So the 4th question is, the path leading to the ending of self-identity, the path leading to the ending of self-identity. Sakkaya Nirodha Gamini Patipada. What is this? Right? So here, of course, the Dhammadinā answers quite directly. Avuso Visakha, it is this very noble Eightfold Path that is spoken of by the Blessed One as being the path leading to the ending of self-identity. That is to say, right view, right thought or right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Right. Here again, we say, oh, I know that. I know the Eightfold Path. In fact, we keep on repeating Eightfold Path almost every day, every time we are among the Buddhists. But sometimes saying it gives us a delusion that we have mastered it, that we know it. And we have not even started walking on the Eightfold Path. We're just saying the word. So this is where we have to take that step to practice it. We practice, for example, by reflecting on impermanence, doing our daily meditation, keeping our mind calm and clear whenever we are awake. Then Visakha goes on to the 5th question. Now, is that clinging same as the 5 aggregates of clinging, or is it other than or different from these 5 aggregates of clinging? So it's a bit of a tricky question here. Is clinging the same as the aggregates, or are they different? The answer, that clinging Avuso Visakha is neither the same as the 5 aggregates of clinging, nor is it other than or different from these five aggregates of clinging. So we can't really say they're the same or different. Depends how we look at it. Avuso Visakha, it is the desire and lust in these five aggregates of clinging that are the clinging therein. Okay, so you have two parts of the answer. It depends. So we can't always say the aggregates are clinging. For example, in a lay person, the tendency is there is clinging in the five aggregates. In the Arahat, no clinging. But even in a lay person, let's say right now, as we are sitting here, there are moments when we have no clinging to the body. We just take it like that, we don't think about it. Okay? But when you are doing meditation, your mind is at peace, so there's no clinging at that time. So we cannot say that, of course, if we are very angry, upset, we desire something, yes, the aggregate is the clinging. But when you are very peaceful, at peace with yourself, then they are just aggregates. Right? So it is our intention which makes it so. Then the next question, section 7, question 6. How now, Ayya, does self-identity arise? Okay, now it's a bit more detailed. Just now it's talking the defining of self-identity. Now how does it arise? How does it come into being? The nun Dhammadina replies, here Avuso Visakha, an untutored ordinary person who is not a seer of the noble ones and who is unskilled in the Dharma of the noble ones, Aryas, undisciplined in the Dharma of the Aryas, who is not a seer of true persons, is unskilled in the Dharma of the true persons, and undisciplined in the Dharma of the true persons. In other words, this person is not really interested in learning Dharma, just taking it as an academic learning or simply for argument. This person considers thus form as the self, or self as possessing form, or form as in the self, or self as in the form. So same thing in the case of feelings, perception, formation, consciousness. So the five aggregates, this person sees it in four ways, all are wrong ways, one of four ways usually. For example, some people may think, oh, my body is myself. Most materialists think like that. So when my body dies, the self, the soul also dies. So why do I worry about future life? Right? This is my only life. The kind of wrong idea. Or they might think that this body owns or possesses, or rather the self, the soul is the one that controls or possesses the body. But the body is inside, contained in a kind of soul. Or the self is inside, the soul is inside the body, kind of like inhabiting it. So these are all wrong ways. These are four possible ways to conceive the idea of a soul. And whatever we conceive as a self or a soul can only be applied to the five aggregates. Applied theoretically, that is. But it is not true, it's not right, because all the five aggregates are changing all the time, impermanent. They are all processes, not entities. Whereas the idea of a self is an idea of an entity. Next question, 7. Question 7, brackets 7. How now, Arya, does self-identity not arise, not come about? Of course, here the answer is the opposite of the previous one. Dhammadina says, here Avuso Visakha, a learned noble disciple, is a seer, the noble ones, and so on. So, the true persons. In other words, this person speaks to the teachers or wives, study the Dhamma. This person does not consider all these 20 kinds of self-identity views. Right? So these are called the 20 kinds of self-identity views. How do you get 20? You've got the 5 aggregates times 4, the 4 kinds of wrong ideas of the self. Now then we come to the section of the Noble Eightfold Path in some detail. Section 9 is question 8. What now, Ayya, is the Noble Eightfold Path? Because here the question is quite obvious, and the nun replies quite directly, Eightfold Path, right view, right thought, and so on, everything is listed again. You might say this is repetition, but then, for beginners, this is very important. They learn to memorize the list, start from there, and then they start questioning. Before you can question about the Eightfold Path, you must know what they are. In other words, do not assume the obvious. Make sure you know what the obvious, the basic teachings are. Then, next, Visakha asks, now Ayya, is the Noble Eightfold Path conditioned or is it unconditioned? It's a very interesting question, right? The Noble Eightfold Path, replies Dhammadinā, Avuso Visakha, is conditioned. But it's not nirvana, so it's conditioned. Conditioned, that means it changes us. It's a way of helping us to move on, to understand ourselves better in that sense. Question 10. Now, Ayya, are the three aggregates included in the Noble Eightfold Path, or is the Noble Eightfold Path included in the three aggregates? Here, another tricky question, right? Or trick question, if you like. The three aggregates here are the three trainings: Sila, Samadhi, Panya. Sometimes they call aggregates. You have the Sila Kanda, aggregate of moral virtue. Then you have Samadhi Kanda, aggregate of mental concentration. And you have Panya Kanda, aggregate of wisdom. So are these three in the path, Eightfold Path, or the Eightfold Path in the tree? Well, it's a kind of technical question. The question is a bit, boggles on might say, wow, what is it? But the answer clarifies it. Dhammadinā answers, the three aggregates, Avuso Visakha, are not included in the Eightfold Path. But Avuso Visakha, it is the Noble Eightfold Path that is included in these three aggregates. Right speech, right action, right livelihood. These factors are included in the aggregate of moral virtue, right? So you have moral virtue contains three things: right speech, right livelihood, right action, right livelihood. Right speech, right action, right livelihood. So this is moral virtue. But it's not the Eightfold Path, it's moral virtue. It's only part of the Eightfold Path. Right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration, these factors are included in the aggregate of mental cultivation. Right view and right thought or right intention, these factors are included in the aggregate of wisdom. Right? So in other words, the three aggregates are not complete in themselves. It is the path which is complete, embodying all the three. That's the meaning. Yeah? Don't think too much about this, you can't understand. This is where this kind of Dhamma teaching is very interesting. What we can understand now, we start thinking, there's a bit of blank in our heads. That's because things have not connected yet. So this is the test. As you study the suttas, you read the suttas, things begin to sink in, you begin to connect, and then one day you say, oh yes, I got it. It just comes like that. That's why you must reflect on the Dharma. So here is where you should reflect on section 11 if you want to go to deeper what's going on here. In other words, you got to input first, and then one day the answer will come to you very clearly. Otherwise, just leave it a while as it is. Don't be worried about it. Then the next section is on mental cultivation. Section 12, question 11. Now, Ayya, what is mental cultivation? What are the objects of mental cultivation? What are the requisites of mental cultivation? What is the cultivation of samadhi? It's about meditation. The Dhammadinā replies, Avuso Visakha, the one-pointedness of mind, cittassa ekagata, this is samadhi. Or you can call this mental stillness. So when we talk of samadhi, Because samadhi sometimes can translate also as meditation, or simply as mental concentration or mental stillness. This is called one-pointedness of the mind, chittasa ekagata, oneness of the mind, unification of the mind. Don't worry about all these translations. You find different translators, different teachers may translate it differently. The important thing is try to remember the Pali word and take all those translations provisional. Important thing is you know they're referring to a kind of state when you meditate, peaceful, focus, still. The four focuses of mindfulness, satipatthana, these are the mental objects, nimitta of samadhi, right? The objects of samadhi. So here samadhi has a sense of, broad sense of meditation, special sense of focus, one-pointedness of the mind. And what is it you focus on? What is the object? Meditation, in this case, the four satipatthana. In a sense, we can say that all the objects of meditation are found in the one or other of the four satipatthanas. Body-based, feeling-based, mind-based, or reality-based. Right? For example, when you watch the breath, it is a body-based object. Then you watch pain, discomfort, it's feeling-based. Then you watch thoughts, that's mind-based. And then sometimes certain teachings, dhammas arise in your mind. Right? So it's all contained in the four satipatthana. The four right efforts, samapadana, these are the requisites of samadhi. In other words, if you want to meditate until your mind is totally focused, you must practice right efforts. What are the right efforts? Number one is to, whatever bad, unwholesome things you have not done, keep it that way. The action of non-action. Number two, if any bad habits begin to show themselves, you stop that. So the first two right efforts are kind of negative aspects. Then the third right effort is, if there is a quality, there's a wholesome quality or habit which you have not done before, like meditation, for example, then you start doing it. And number four is quite easy. You keep on doing it. Right? These are the four right efforts. So this is what helps you in your meditation. These states are much cultivated. These states that are much cultivated, associated with, this is here the cultivation of samadhi. So in other words, in summary, it is what we should do for good meditation. Now, the questions go a bit deeper. Session 13, question 12. What now are formations? Okay, this is sort of a trick question, because you need a Pali here. The English is not complete. There's not 90 there. Kati pannaye sankarati. Sankarati. So sankarati, you can translate either singular or plural. Of course, some scholars will say if it's singular, it will be sankaroti. So this is where basically there's a play on the word sankara. We will discover this in a moment. So here I've translated it simply as the way we are familiar with the word sankara in the plural. What now are formations? Sankara. Also, there are these three kinds of formations: bodily formation, verbal formation, mental formation, right? In other words, karma of body, speech and mind. What now? Here are bodily formations, verbal formation and mental formation. What are they? This reply is very interesting. 14.2. The in and out breath, also, is bodily formation. In and out breath is bodily formation. That is the body. It is form of the body. Thinking and pondering are verbal formation. Why? Because before we talk, there is this thinking going on. Perception and feeling are mental formation. So these are three aspects we need to reflect on. This is the way the Arhat answers: body, speech and mind. What are they? Here the answer is broad enough, and yet at the same time it also reflects her own mind, as we will discover soon. Section 15. This is the 14th question now. But Ayah, why are the in and out breath bodily formation? Why are thinking and pondering verbal formation? Why are perception and feeling mental formation? No S, mental formation. So here you find you have singular here. In Pali, line 14.2, asasa pasasa ko avuso visaka kaya sankharo. So you have singular now. So now you have to watch out this. The word is used in the singular, not the usual plural sankhara. And this is very significant. The Nanda Badina replies, 15.2, the in and out breaths, avuso, these are states bound up with the body. Therefore, they are called bodily formation. Because breathing is with the body, at least in a normal situation. Avuso visaka, one having first thought and pondered, then breaks out into speech. Therefore, thinking and pondering are verbal formation. Right? Before we talk, there's some thinking behind it, what we say, very fast, of course. Also, Visaka, next one, perception and feeling, these are mentally connected states, bound up with the mind. Therefore, perception and feeling are mental formation. Right? Perceiving, recognizing things, and then feeling. Right? Present feeling and present feeling, neutral feeling. It's all to do with the mind. Now we come to the most difficult question for us. Section 16, question 15. And Ayah, how does the cessation of perception and feeling arise? Right? So this kind of builds up from the previous question. Because the previous question, the answer has to do with perception and feeling. So when does it stop? Avuso Visaka, in a monk who is attaining that cessation of perception and feeling, it does not occur to him, I will attain the cessation of perception and feeling, or I am attaining it, or I have attained it. In other words, thinking does not occur in that kind of state. Rather, his mind has been so cultivated before that it naturally gets into that state. In other words, his mind has been so cultivated that it naturally happens. It is habitually he can get into the state without thinking. So this gives us a clue also. When people are in dhyana, deep absorption, thinking does not occur. This is something we need to carefully bear in mind. So anyone who tells you thinking can occur during jhana probably has not surely has not attained jhana at all, because thinking occurs when the mind interacts with the five senses. That means you are still in the world. But dhyana is when all the five senses are shut down. The mind is all by itself. It's the real solitude, patisalana. The mind all by itself. Section 17. Ayah, when the monk is attaining cessation of perception and feeling, which state ends first? Bodily formation, or verbal formation, or mental formation? You see here, Visaka is not an arahat yet, but he seems to know the theory quite well. So it's like he's trying to test the Dhamma dinnā. This is a tough question. Right? Only an arahat can answer this. So Dhamma dinnā answers 17.2. When a monk is attaining cessation of perception and feeling, Avuso Visaka, Verbal formation ends first, then bodily formation, then mental formation. Right? So this is quite simple, really. Even in meditation, what stops first? Our speech. You got to stop talking if you really want to meditate. No speech, silence. Yeah, at first we use some kind of words in our mind, right, to help us focus, and then we stop doing that. When we find we're very focused, we stop saying all those things. So in other words, now the body becomes more focused because you have let go of the body. We don't feel the body anymore. No more pain. Then the mind remains by itself. Then we let go of the mind also. There is dhyana or jhana. Next question. How does one emerge from the attainment of cessation and perception or the cessation of perception and feeling? Only arahats can attain this state. So Visakha asks, how do you come out of it? Also Visakha, in a monk who is attaining the cessation of perception and feeling, it does not occur to him that I will emerge, I am emerging, or I have emerged from that cessation. So he doesn't think about it. It naturally comes out of it. It's like falling asleep, for us the closest analogy is when you're falling asleep. You don't say, I want to sleep, and then clunk, you fall asleep, And then you say, I'm going to wake up, You don't say that, you wake up naturally. At the right time, you wake up. So it's not difficult to imagine this idea of cessation of perception and feeling. Section 20, question 19. Now, a monk who has emerged from the attainment of cessation of perception and feeling, how many contacts does he experience? Contacts, that means sense impressions. Answer. A monk who has emerged from the attainment of cessation of perception and feeling, also Visakha, experiences three kinds of contacts. That is, the empty contact, or you can also translate as emptiness contact, the signless contact, the undirected contact. So these are three really very deep terms. The empty contact, sunyata passa, signless contact, animita passa, the undirected contact, apanihita passa. So these are actually three kinds of mental states, if you like. How this mind which is awakened from deep meditation is described. Empty meaning what? It's empty of concepts, empty of words, ideas. Signless. It doesn't take anything as an object at that level. It doesn't need any object. The second one is there's no way you can describe it. There's got no attributes, if you like. It's clear, empty mind, if you like. And then the undirected contact, that means you cannot direct it anywhere. It doesn't have any object. It doesn't go anywhere. So this is a way of talking about the awakened mind, if you like. Section 21, question 20. Now, Ayah, for let me see here. I think it should read like for one who has emerged from the attainment of perception and feeling, to what does it bend? To what does it slope? To what does it tend? So this mind that has come out of cessation, like answer, the mind of a monk who has emerged from the attainment of perception and feeling, also bends to solitude, slopes to solitude, tends to solitude. So in other words, it's just happy being himself, by himself. So this is where you have this idea of emotional independence. The person is happy for himself. Next section, 22, question 21. Now, Ayah, how many kinds of feelings are there? Again, yes, this is a basic question. There are three kinds of feeling, as we know. So, Dhamma answers, pleasant feeling, painful feeling, neither pleasant nor painful feeling, or neutral feeling. Now this is only the beginning, the first part of the question. Then the next question is, what now, Ayya, are pleasant feeling, painful feeling, and neither pleasant nor painful feeling? So here we're not talking about on a normal level anymore, because this question is being asked of an Arahat. So this is an Arahat's answer. So she says, whatever avuso is felt bodily or mentally as pleasant or agreeable, this is pleasant feeling. Whatever avuso, visakha, is felt bodily or mentally as painful or agreeable, this is painful feeling. Whatever avuso, visakha, is felt bodily or mentally as being neither disagreeable nor agreeable, this is neither pleasurable nor painful or neutral feeling. Right? So altogether you have here two of each, body and mind. The body or mind can feel pleasant, body and mind can feel unpleasant, body and mind can feel neutral. So you get 6 feelings altogether. This is where you get, it's a very interesting point, you see the difference between Abhidhamma and the Suttas. Abhidhamma talks of 6 feelings. Right? Suttas talk of 6 feelings. But the Abhidhamma only talks of 5. Because the Abhidhamma says, neutral feeling, mental or bodily, you're the same because there's nothing going on there. I mean, it's neutral. So they try to be very technical about it. Right? So this is why I say sometimes the Abhidhamma differs from the Sutta. And where the Abhidhamma differs from the Sutta, in this case especially, we definitely should accept the Sutta teaching rather than the Abhidhamma teaching. Because the Abhidhamma teaching are later philosophizing of Buddhism, systematizing of Buddhism. Section 24. Now, Ayya, regarding pleasant feeling, what is pleasant, what is painful? Regarding painful feeling, what is painful, what is pleasant? Regarding neutral feeling, what is pleasant, what is painful? Now, this is asking the right question. It's even difficult to think of such questions. It's as if Visakha already know the answer of the nature of feelings. It's just like testing Dhamma for our benefit. She replies, Avuso Visakha, pleasant feeling is pleasant when it persists, painful when it changes. Right, so the answer is so clear now. Pleasant feeling is not always pleasant. It's only pleasant when it lasts, while it lasts, or while we think it lasts. But once it changes, we feel unhappy, we feel painful. In fact, you'll be surprised. Let's say, for example, something happens, something really happy happens to you. You're waiting for something wonderful, Maybe you're waiting for this first prize lottery, and suddenly you got the money. Wow, 4 million, You got it. And then suddenly a cold sweat runs through your body. You say, oh dear, what's happening to me now? I have so much money. And then all these people will come to me, relatives known and unknown. All these people will come to me and claiming to be my relatives, asking, wow. And then there'll be robbers waiting for me and so on. And you begin to feel a little uneasy, or very uneasy, right? So although it's a pleasant feeling, it's a package deal. There is a bit of shadow behind it. So that's the meaning here. Painful feeling is painful when it persists, pleasant when it changes. Right? It's obvious, eh? Pain is if we don't like it, but then it goes away for a while. So, oh, that's good. Regarding neutral feeling, what is pleasant and what is painful? Neutral feeling is pleasant when it is, when there is knowledge of it, right? Once we know it, we say, oh, good, we understand what it is. Painful when there is no knowledge of it. When we are not aware of it, ignorance accumulates. We feel bored, especially, right? That's painful. Notice how beautiful these answers are. Alright, now, next section, latent tendencies. Now, what latent tendencies lies in the pleasant feeling, in a painful feeling, in a neutral feeling, right? This is standard, okay? So, the Madina answers, also Visakha, the latent feeling of lust lies latent in pleasant feeling. The latent tendency of aversion lies in painful feeling. The latent tendency of ignorance lies in a neutral feeling. Okay, the meaning is that every time we delight in something, we reinforce the latent tendency of lust. Every time we show hatred or anger, we reinforce the latent tendency of aversion or ill will. And every time we don't bother about something, we don't notice it, we reinforce the latent tendency of ignorance. Then Visakha continues, is the latent tendency of lust latent in all pleasant feelings? Is the latent tendency of aversion latent in all painful feelings? Is the latent tendency of ignorance latent in all neutral feelings? So the nun answers, they are not all present. Okay, they are not always there all the time. Next question, what should be abandoned in regard to pleasant feeling? What should be abandoned with regard to painful feeling? What should be abandoned with regard to neutral feelings? And here the nun answers, with regard to pleasant feeling, the latent tendency of lust should be abandoned. In the case of painful feeling, aversion should be abandoned. In the case of neutral feeling, ignorance should be abandoned. So here, what does it mean? In other words, it's okay for us to feel pleasant feelings, like for example, when you meditate, you feel joyful. The important thing is not to show attachment to it. Now, it's different, because sometimes you hear some people saying, oh, you should not practice metta, or you should not practice jhana, because you get attached to these wonderful feelings. That's putting the cart before the horse. This is not mentioned in the suttas at all. This section, for example, is an example. It clearly says the implication is pleasant feeling is okay, but as long as you're not attached to it, let it come, let it go. Painful feelings, when they arise, don't show hatred to it, show loving kindness in fact. And if neutral feelings arise, reflect the impermanence of it, let it go. Next question, section 28, question 27. Now Ayya, must all latent tendency of lust be abandoned with regard to pleasant feelings? Must all latent tendency of aversion be abandoned with regard to painful feelings? Must all the latent tendency of ignorance be abandoned with regard to neutral feelings? And Dhammadinna's answer is not so. Not all pleasant feelings have latent tendency of lust should be abandoned. Not all painful feelings that have feelings have a latent tendency of aversion that should be abandoned. Not all neutral feelings have the latent tendency of ignorance that should be abandoned. So in other words, you can feel pleasant, but there's no latent tendency of lust there. For example, you're showing metta, you feel happy. There's no latent tendency of lust there. Sometimes, for example, you're practicing and you find, oh dear, I'm lazy in my meditation, or I made a mistake, I broke a precept, and you feel sad about it. That's not latent tendency of hatred. That is a kind of a udacha maybe. It's concern, it's different. And then sometimes we don't feel anything. It's a calm feeling, equanimity. But the Dhammadinna's answer is in connection with meditation. 28.3. Here also Visakha, a monk quite detached from sensual pleasures, detached from unwholesome mental states, enters and dwells in the first dhyana, accompanied by initial application and sustained application, accompanied by zest and joy born of seclusion. This is the first jhana. In that way he abandons lust. No latent tendency of lust therein. There you are. A good example is jhana. It's pleasurable. There's no lust. Here also a monk considers thus. Now when shall I attain and dwell in that mental base that the noble ones attain and dwell in? So he has this desire. He says, I also want to attain the state that the Buddha enjoys. In whom there arises a desire of being established in a supreme liberation, sorrow arises on account of desire. So if you only desire, then suffering may arise. In what way he abandons aversion. In that way, he abandons aversion. No little tendency of aversion lies therein. So in other words, you may feel dissatisfied. You say, oh dear, I've not attained this level yet. I'm still weak. I want to strengthen myself, keeping the precepts, practicing meditation. Right? You don't feel happy about it, but you act on it. So that unhappiness is not something negative. Here also, with the abandoning of physical joy and pain, and with the earlier disappearance of mental pleasure and displeasure, a monk attains and dwells in the fourth dhyana, that is neither painful nor pleasant, and with mindfulness fully purified by equanimity. In that way, he abandons ignorance. No little ignorance lies therein. In the fourth dhyana, it's very equanimous. No pleasure, no pain. Neutral, right? But there is no ignorance there. The mind is joyful. And when the mind comes out, my soul clear, it can easily see things with wisdom. Now we're coming to the end of it. The question of opposites. This is another tricky set of questions where we got to understand this language in terms of on the meditation level. 29, question 28. Now, what is the opposite of pleasant feeling? Answer, a painful feeling also is the opposite of pleasant feeling. It's quite clear, quite simple, right? What is the opposite of painful feeling? Opposite is pleasant feeling. It's obvious, right? So the nun answers that way. But it's going to get tricky in a moment. Now, what is the opposite of neutral feeling? Answer, ignorance. Also, Visakha is the opposite of neutral feeling. In other words, here it is ignorance that makes neutral feeling bad. Okay? In that sense. So Patibhaga here can translate as opposite. There's a sense of also, it makes its opposite to become bad or negative, in other words. Or shows it in contrast. Okay? Then, 29.4, now what is the opposite of ignorance? True knowledge also is the opposite of ignorance. Right? Vijja, true knowledge, is the knowledge that brings us liberation. And what is the opposite of true knowledge? Liberation also is the opposite of true knowledge. You see, true knowledge alone, any kind of knowledge for that matter, is just knowledge. Right? You got to apply it. Then you are liberated, in other words. So knowledge of liberation alone is not enough, in other words. Some people may know they are liberated, but they do not act on it, so to speak. Of course, this is not really possible. Theoretically speaking, it's possible on a lower level. Let's say we all know something, but we are afraid to say or to do it. We all have the ability to come and study suttas, but somehow something is stopping us, something like that. Because we don't realize our potential. So liberation is the opposite of true knowledge. Now, what is the opposite of liberation? Nirvana also is the opposite of liberation. Liberation is being freed from certain defilements, but you still have not attained nirvana. But once you attain nirvana, you are free of everything. So in other words, if you still have only some level of liberation, it's not complete nirvana yet. And moreover, nirvana is something you cannot really talk about. And this is the next question, the last question. It's a trick question actually. 29.7. Now, what is the opposite of nirvana? Now, it's almost that the nun is almost like reprimanding the layman. It says, Avuso, you have exceeded the question. You are unable to grasp the limit of the question. Say, that's it. This is wrongly questioned, wrongly put. And if you wish, Avuso, you might approach the Blessed One and ask him about the meaning of this. And remember whatever he answers you. Oh yes, 29.8. For Avuso Visakha, the holy life is grounded in nirvana. As nirvana as the far shore, nirvana as its end. Okay? Here, you can give a whole day talk on nirvana. You can spend one whole week. We call it nirvana retreat. You study all the suttas of nirvana. It is still not nirvana. Nirvana, you have to experience it yourself. It's impossible to talk about it. You can experience it yourself. It's like tasting sweetness, seeing a beautiful scenery. You experience it for yourself. You can try and talk about it to others, but it is still not it. So that's how what's meant here about nirvana. So nirvana is not opposite. Like you find in later traditions, they contrast nirvana with samsara. You even go to the extent of saying, oh, samsara and nirvana are no different. Very confusing, right? It's very nice philosophy, but it is going away from the suttas. So it's good to return to the simplicity and clarity of the suttas. So occasionally it's good to look at this kind of answers and helps us to direct ourselves properly, not to get lost in the forest of later Buddhisms. So then the layman Visakha, having joyfully approved of the nun's Dhammadina's word, rose from his seat, saluted her. Keeping his right side to the nun Dhammadina, he approached the Blessed One. So it tells everything again to the Blessed One, and the Buddha replies, wise Visakha is the nun Dhammadina. Of great wisdom, Visakha is the nun Dhammadina. If you, Visakha, had asked me about its meaning, I too would have explained it just the same way as has been explained by the nun Dhammadina. And such indeed is its meaning. You should remember it as such. The Blessed One said this. The layman Visakha joyfully approved of the Blessed One's word. So notice how the last line endorses, gives the seal of approval to what Dhammadina has been answering to the questions of the non-returner Visakha. And so our sutta ends here. So let us do a short reflection now. Yes, you have a question? Oh, okay, question.
Yeah, just now you said you wanted to explain what's the difference between formation and formations.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, generally, the difference between the plural formations and the singular formation. The plural is used for the unawakened mind, right? Up to all the non-arahats. Okay. In other words, our mind is manifold. In the plural, we think a lot of our things, all the different things. Why a lot of different things? Because we are still controlled by our five senses. So that's the maininess, our five senses. We see something, we think about it. We hear something, we think about it. We smell something, we think about it, and so on. And then our own mental thinking process also. So all these form ideas, and then we talk about it, and then we act on it. So these all formations, very complex. Whereas in the case of the Arahat, there is just sankhara. The thought process just acts normal, and then let's say the monk, the Arahat will be sitting quietly, meditating, or very calmly walking. When he walks, there's just the action of walking, nothing else troubles him, but he's happy inside. It's like you're very happy, happiness in every step. It's not a robot, it's very happy. And then you stop him, he will stop, and you talk to him, he will pay attention, he listens to you. So it's only one thing at a time. That's another way of maybe understanding sankhara, singular. It's one thing at a time. So the Arahat has got that wonderful focus, the ability to respond to you, to help you in the wholesome way. So that's the difference between sankhara puro, sankhara puro. So in other words, the Arahat still thinks. The process of thinking, not knowing is there. But it's not the way we think. It is kind of direct and clear to the point. Sankhara, singular. Okay? One thing at a time. Alright, any other question? Okay, happy?
Then I want to ask you about cessation of perception and feeling.
Yes.
What kind of state does it refer to?
Okay, cessation of perception and feeling. is the ninth abode. Okay, there are what are called the 9 successive abodes, or 9 progressive abodes, or 9 gradual abodes. The 4 form jhanas, 4 formless jhanas, and then cessation. Okay. A lot of monks who are deep meditators are able to attain jhana, form jhana, but it's difficult to attain formless jhana. But arhats like Sariputta Moggallana can. However, the last one, cessation of perception of feeling, means of everything, all the processes, bodily and mental, that we know, cease. By modern technical terms, the person is as good as dead. But the person is not dead, because the life is continuum is still there. And at the right time, this person will come out again of that state. Only arhats and the Buddha can attain that final state. It's like being in nirvana in this life itself. Okay? So that's called, in short, it is called cessation. It's a kind of suspended animation, if you like. Any other question?
Then there's, I think, page 50. Page 50, section 19, bracket 18.
Yes.
I think we missed on this section, right?
Emerging, no, same. Emerging, when it's coming out of, when the arhat is coming out of cessation, yeah, I think we missed this up. Okay, so the question is, when a monk is emerging from cessation, which state arises first? Bodily formation, verbal formation, or mental formation? In other words, body, speech, or mind becomes active first when the arhat is coming out of cessation. And Dhammadinna answers, is the mental formation starts first. The mind arises first, then bodily formation, then verbal formation. It's like you're getting up from sleep. What do you do? Normally, it's not a very exact comparison, but it helps us to understand. When we wake up, what's the meaning of waking up? The mind is active first, right? Then after that, our body becomes active, and then we can start talking like a normal person. Try talking to someone who has just woken up, very incoherent, right? So it's like that. So someone coming out of cessation is like that. The mind activates itself first, that the body becomes active, and then speech. Because speech depends on the mind, right? Notice if you have fear or you're not prepared, you don't know what to say because the mind is not ready. So these are all very logical. Okay, so any other questions? Yeah, it's good. All this, you notice the missing parts and so on. My eyesight is not that good. Nowadays, sometimes I misread numbers, so I got to look at things more closely. And I'm happy that my eyesight is not so good, because my eyesight has been good. So now I've well used my eyesight. So that's the way eyesight goes. Nothing to be said about. Any more questions?
That's all.
Okay, that's all. Let us close with reflection. Today we have the opportunity and privilege of studying this most wonderful good sutta called the Cūḻa Vedalla Sutta, which is a conversation between layman, non-returner, and Arahat nun. It helps us to see the nature of the awakened mind, and also some deeper aspects of the Buddha's teaching and how we can relate to them. All this is the fruit of many good karma we have done. Because it's not easy to get such a sutta, to listen to such teachings. With the power of such good karma, may we, in this life itself, enjoy mental peace and insight wisdom. And with the power of all the good things we have done, our faith in the three jewels, practice of the precepts, practice of generosity, may we attain spiritual liberation, especially stream winning in this life itself. In this moment of peace, let us send out our loving kindness to all beings, especially our loved ones. May they be well, may they be happy. To those whom the Dhamma have not touched, that they may see the Dhamma and be joyful. To all other people, even those inimical to us, that they may see the Dhamma and be happy and kind to everyone. May all beings be well and happy. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.